customers maybe rather than waiting for it.
Back in Carmarthen at the town's market, the focus is more on the economy and how hard it's become for some of the traders. John's on the stall selling Welsh souvenirs.
It's getting harder. People don't find the price for it, so you just can't afford it.
And that's a definite change in the last couple of years.
Last 2 years anyway. This doesn't seem to be getting any better.
Nearby, I meet Matthew, who sells Carmarthen ham. He wants more support for small businesses and is willing to lend his backing to whichever party supports him.
Yes, I'm Welsh food, so I would have my vote any day of the week. But then again, the other party, I'm open to swaying as long as the right policies are put there.
So, 17 days to go until election day. And in this corner of the country, it feels impossible to predict which party will prevail.
That was Hal Griffith reporting from Carmarthen. Show a full list of candidates in their constituency. You can see on the details.
Speaking of constituencies, this evening I'll be hosting a hustings event in Motherwell, Wishaw and Carluke near Glasgow, and then a week today on Monday the 24th of June, Nick would be in Bolton West for a similar event. Both are constituencies that we are keeping a particular eye on as a programme in the course of this election. But if you live in either one of them and would like free tickets to attend, please email today at bbc.co.uk. Remember to include a phone number and also any questions that you have for the candidates.
19 minutes past 7 this morning. Labour is promising to create 650,000 jobs over the next 5 years to help revive the UK's industrial heartlands and boost economic growth. Shadow Chancellor Rachel Reeves says investing more than £7 billion in a new national wealth fund would unlock 3 times as much money from the private sector. The Conservatives say it's part of a £38 billion black hole in Labour's policies. Let's talk to Ben Chew, the policy and analysis correspondent for BBC Verify. What do you make of what Rachel Reeves is saying?
Well, let's put it in the big picture, Justin. So Labour's manifesto, it outlines around £4.7 billion a year of additional investment spending. So that is on top of the current government plans. Most of it is emissions-related investments for decarbonisation. So that really would be a sizable increase on the £8 billion a year, which is currently being spent by the government. But of course, it's a far cry from the £28 billion a year that Labour was once promising. And an important context as well, Justin, is that total government investment as a share of GDP would still fall under Labour's plans as it would under the current baseline. Now, in terms of the jobs, it likely will create some jobs, but whether they will be additional jobs, whether there'll be a 650,000 new jobs that wouldn't have been created otherwise, is open to question. Because what might be happening is it might be displacing some of the old jobs that go in the fossil fuel production sector, rather than being genuinely new jobs. So I think that's all really important context.
Yeah, and also when you, all the parties do this, but is this confusion about whether things are, whether costings and indeed spending promises are by a parliament or are annual, and that obviously really matters, doesn't it? So the National Wealth Fund is what, for the total parliament?
Yes, that's right. So they're saying that the National Wealth Fund will be £7.3 billion, and they're using this figure a lot, but this is, as you say, over a parliament. It's probably better to think about it in terms of annual expenditure on these things. So the National Wealth Fund will go on things like ports, hydrogen and industrial clusters. An annual figure is more like 1.8 billion, and actually in their own costings they put it as 1.5 billion. So it's much more useful to think about it in terms of annual spending on investment, and that part of their spending on investment is the National Wealth Fund, about £1.5 billion a year.
Right, Labour's Paymaster General, the Shadow Paymaster General, John Ashworth, is going to be talking to us after news. It's 30 for time being Ben Chew.
21 minutes past 7, and let us turn to the effect of political uncertainty in France on Paris's main stock market last week. Significant losses. Plus, can explain?
Yes, with election campaigning getting underway today, we'll be looking back at the fact that political uncertainty last week like €100 billion off Paris's main stock market. It was the worst week, in fact, for more than 2 years for the CAC 40, which dropped more than 6% after Emmanuel Macron will open in just under 40 minutes. So what movement might we see today? Well, I'm joined now by Klaus Vistenson, who's Chief Eurozone Economist at Pantheon Macroeconomics. Klaus, good morning.
Good morning.
A really tricky week for the French markets. What are you expecting when they reopen?
I think we should expect more of the same. Volatility, up and down, probably mostly down for equities and up for bond yields. That's the trend we've seen. And I think that probably continues into the election, the two rounds, which we'll see the first round at the end of this month and then the second round at the beginning of July.
What is it about the political uncertainty that spooked investors so badly?
Well, in a nutshell, investors are now worried that France will become ungovernable after the legislative elections. It looks like the sort of Macron centre is going to be completely eviscerated, and then you're going to have two big blocks in Parliament, one left-wing bloc, one right-wing bloc with Le Pen's party, and the left wing with this new Front Populaire. And neither is probably going to get a sort of an absolute majority. It's a little bit uncertain. We don't know yet. And if that happens, it's going to be really difficult to make any decisions, right, on the budget, on the economy, on sort of general domestic economic issues. And I think that's what worries markets, as well as the sort of increase in popularity of the right-wing Le Pen's party. Markets are always worried about that, but I think that in general it's probably also the economic situation that might sort of arise out of this election.
Well, the French Finance Minister, Bruno Le Maire, warned on Friday that a far-right victory could potentially lead to a debt crisis. Is he right to be worried, or is he just scoring a political point?
I mean, mostly scoring political points, right? In the sense that, I mean, because he is basically, his coalition is set to lose out to the right. I mean, I think we don't really know what the far right wants to do in economic terms yet. But markets are worried because remember Le Pen's party, when Le Pen campaigned for president, especially the first time, she wanted to exit NATO, she wanted to exit the EU, she wanted to exit the Eurozone, and that kind of lingers still with the far right. I think personally that if they get to govern, I think they'll be a little bit more moderate, like we perhaps see with Meloni in Italy, but no one knows, and markets shoot first and ask questions later, and then we'll see where it ends up.
Klaus Vistenson from Pantheon Macroeconomics, thank you.
Thank you, Chris. It is 24 minutes past 7. Again, is the most played artist of last year across the UK. That includes radio, TV, and public places as well. Let's talk to Laura Snipes, Deputy Music Editor of The Guardian, who's on the line. Morning to you, Laura.
Morning.
He's done it again. No great surprise, I suppose.
No, I mean, he's one of the biggest artists the UK has produced in the past 10 years, and his music spans such a wealth of genres as well, from pop to acoustic. He's collaborated with metal bands, he's collaborated with rappers. He really suits any number of radio stations, which I think is what this poll is sort of representing.
Ah, that's the interesting thing, isn't it? So it's the breadth of him that leads him into this position for, I don't know, how many times has he done it now? But quite a few.
I think it's at least the third. Definitely the breadth. I think the interesting thing is, the albums that he put out in the last couple of years are a lot more acoustic compared to the stuff that he's previously done, and they have not been anywhere near as commercially successful as the likes of the record that produced Shape of You. So I think at this point, he's got a lot of legacy singles that are just in kind of perpetual rotation on these stations.
I kind of half expected Taylor Swift to be at the top of this, but I suppose that's from a position of ignorance. Why is she not?
Well, yeah, I mean, the cultural saturation has been so much that you might even imagine
Yes.
she's there to be.
But what is it then that he has that she is it the breadth? Well, she also has enormous breadth.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember that this poll represents music that has been played in the UK at gyms and cafes and shops and stuff like that. So I'd imagine it's probably quite a lot of commercial radio stations. It doesn't correspond with what the actual most popular songs were from last year in terms of streaming and sales and so on. I think Ed Sheeran's music is, you could perhaps politely say about it, it's very, very inoffensive, and it doesn't really have the sort of very strong forefrontal kind of like personality in the way that a Taylor Swift song does. I must say I don't like Shape of You, but I do specifically recall being in a shopping centre and thinking, oh, what's this? I quite like this, and then realising, oh right, it's that song you don't like.
Yeah, and is that then a temptation to other artists to go into an area that is safe and easy and playable in gyms and not to be as explorative and interesting actually as they possibly could be?
I'm not sure about that. I think you can really sort of divide the sort of pop stars that we have today into two camps. There are the kinds that make very commercial music, who stuff like sticky floor nightclubs and gyms, and that's great and wonderful. And like Britain is really, really good at that. Like one of the most popular songs in this list of last year is Ellie Goulding and Calvin Harris's "Miracle," which is like a big trance song that you would hear at 2 o'clock in the morning in a club that sells blue drinks, and that's great. It's really good we have that. And then it's really good that we've also got sort of more artistic, boundary-breaking pop stars as well. I'd say that Ed Sheeran, Spotify has really changed the way that a lot of pop sounds. And so there was a long period where pop stars were making kind of spread music, which is what Ed Sheeran has done, where you make music for a lot of genres, you can hear on a lot of different playlists. It was nicknamed at one point Spotify core. I think that's falling out of fashion a little bit because, if you look at the big pop albums that have come out this year, they've all got a very distinctive aesthetic. And as much as people would like to say, the album is dead, look at the bodies of work that like Beyonce and Billie Eilish and Taylor Swift and people have put out this year. I think that idea of a whole contained world is still really, really important. And so that spread message is going away a little bit.
Laura Snapes from The Guardian, thank you.
We're all chuckling in the studio here about blue drinks. I'm not sure. I'm kind of imagining that's just memory, so I can't speak for Alan and McCarthy.
No comments, Kathy. Definitely no comments. I'll just move on to sports very swiftly. 20-year-old Jude Bellingham scored the only goal as England beat Serbia 1-0 to give Gareth Southgate's side a winning start to their European Championship campaign. The other sides in that group, Denmark and Slovenia, drew 1-1. We'll be talking Euros in the next hour. Golf, and Rory McIlroy came close to winning his first major in a decade at the US Open, but the Northern Irishman finished one shot behind the eventual winner, America's Bryson DeChambeau. Ireland are out of cricket's T20 Men's World Cup. They lost to Pakistan and finished bottom of their group. Tennis, and the new British #1 Jack Draper won his first ATP Tour title, beating Matteo Berrettini in Stuttgart. Katie Boulter won the Nottingham Open title for the second year in a row, while Emma Raducanu has turned down the chance to play for Great Britain at this summer's Olympics as she continues to recover from surgery on her wrists and ankle. The two-time Olympic singles champion Andy Murray could play singles and doubles in Paris. I've been speaking to him and Jamie Murray, who's himself a 7-time Grand Slam doubles champion. They don't do interviews together very often, but they've been chatting to me about playing doubles at Wimbledon for the first time, and about Jamie being tournament director at Queen's this week, where Andy is the most successful player, having won 5 singles and a doubles title.
Always obviously enjoy coming back here. I got lots of brilliant memories over the years from here. It was a place where I won my first ATP match when I was 18, and obviously watched this tournament as a kid growing up on the TV, and always loved coming back to play.
This time it's your brother, Jamie, who's sitting alongside us as well, who's the tournament director, looking very smart today. I see you in your hard hat as well. What has surprised you in this week that you've been involved, particularly on location here?
I think just everything that goes into putting on the event. I think the site build started like 6 weeks ago, and it's a very tight schedule they have to make it all happen. And hopefully now everything's set up, and can have a great week of tennis. Got a great field this year again, and looking forward to seeing all the guys out there competing.
And your brother, Andy, the most successful player at this tournament, never short of a suggestion or a bit of advice. Has he given you any input?
Not yet, but I mean, to be honest, I think the good thing that it's a player or ex-player doing this role is that, I think players feel more like they can approach the guys and kind of put forward their complaints or issues or whatever that they might be having, and they know that they're kind of talking to someone who understands them and kind of talks their language and stuff. So, hopefully they enjoy themselves, play some good tennis, and off they go to Wimbledon.
Andy, you've played tennis together, spent so much time together, but it's a different dynamic for the two of you as brothers, with Jamie as the tournament director.
During the pandemic, Jamie did a brilliant job setting up the Battle of the Brits events and giving the players an opportunity to compete during that time. And I think from there, you started to get into that side of things a little bit more.
He always was nice to you.
Most of the time, yeah, he can be nice, yeah.
Jamie, I think you suggested the potential of playing doubles at Wimbledon first. Andy, what was your reaction when Jamie suggested that?
Would always be up for playing doubles with my brother. It's just tennis for me now. It's not easy. Physically it is challenging, and obviously the 5-set match at Wimbledon is tough. The fact that they've reduced the doubles down to 3 sets now, makes it obviously a little bit easier. But my concern is if I had an extremely long singles match, is that physically if I'm not able to perform well in the doubles, obviously don't want to let my brother down as well. But it is also an opportunity that we never played at Wimbledon together before, and felt like the right thing to do.
Just on that, playing singles and and playing doubles. The Olympic announcement has been made. You're playing definitely in singles, a 5th time at an Olympics. How important is that to you and to your year?
Yeah, I mean, the Olympics has always been really special for me. I've had brilliant experiences there over the years. I've had obviously huge highs in the Olympics, but some a couple of tough losses as well. My first Olympics in Beijing was a difficult experience, but great learning experience for me. And then, Tokyo in the last Olympics, Joe Salisbury were really close to winning a medal there, and didn't quite get there. So obviously the gold medals were really nice, as well in between that. And yeah, I have had great experiences too. But yeah, to be involved in the 5th one, yeah, I'm really proud of that. And there weren't too many players that get the opportunity in tennis to play many particular singles. So I'm looking forward to it.
Lovely, that point about comment, isn't there, Jamie? Just a point on the LTA, using your profile and being a tournament director. Is this part of developing skills that you're doing at him or Watson doing it at Nottingham? An important part of taking players into the next part of their career?
I think so. I mean, I think it's a great opportunity. It's a great initiative that they've come up with, and I'm excited that they've given me the opportunity to do that and put their trust in me to kind of do this role and do it well and hopefully enhance or improve the tournament in any way that I can, help to support it continue to be a success.
Thank you very much, both of you. Jamie, Andy, thank you for joining.
Thank you.
And of course, the Cinch Championships on BBC Two. They start at 1 o'clock this afternoon. Racing tips this morning: Carlisle number 4, it's 4 o'clock even number 5. Alpine Sierra, Windsor 8 o'clock number 3. Composite.
Thank you very much, Kathy. Now, let's hear what's coming up. Ooh, nothing is coming up except the weather. Well, let's go on to the weather then, which is going to be, actually rather nicer in many respects. Sunnier and dry start, showers developing later there. If you're in northern Scotland, though, it will start cloudy. It is starting cloudy with patchy rain.
You're listening to Today on BBC Radio 4, where Alan Smith has the news.
Witnesses have told the BBC that the Greek Coast Guard bore responsibility for the deaths of dozens of migrants in the Mediterranean over a 3-year period, including 9 people deliberately thrown into the water. BBC analysis has found that 41 people are alleged to have died as a result of being forced out of Greek territorial waters or being taken back out to sea after reaching Greek islands. The Greek Coast Guard said it strongly rejected all accusations of illegal activities and insisted its staff worked tirelessly with the utmost respect for human life. England football fans have been celebrating the Three Lions winning start to Euro 2024. The match in Germany was watched by millions of people across England. 7 Serbian fans were arrested after clashes in Gelsenkirchen before the match, which England won 1-0. Nigel Farage will today unveil Reform UK's election manifesto, which the party is calling a contract with voters. The proposals include a freeze on non-essential immigration, cuts to income tax and higher defence spending, which the party says will be funded by scrapping net zero targets and cutting the welfare bill. Last night, a Reform candidate resigned from the party after it emerged he'd previously urged people to vote for the British National Party. Grant Claire Armstrong will still appear on the ballot paper of the Reform UK candidate because the deadline for nominations has passed. A list of all the candidates standing in the North West Essex constituency can be found on the BBC website. In the day's other campaigning, Labour will highlight its promise to set up a national wealth fund to create 650,000 jobs over the next 5 years. It says the scheme would invest more than £7 billion to support the steel industry, manufacture electric vehicle batteries and build supply chains. The Conservatives have accused the plan of being part of a multi-billion-pound black hole in Labour's policies. And an adaptation of the coming-of-age novel The Outsiders has won Best Musical at the Tony Awards in New York. There are a number of first-time winners at the annual celebration in Broadway, including the star of the Harry Potter films, Daniel Radcliffe. He was named Best Featured Actor in a Musical for his role in Merrily Roll Along, a revival of a Stephen Sondheim classic.
Alan, thank you very much. 25 to 8. By the end of the next Parliament, if Labour is elected, 650,000 new jobs will have been created through about £1.5 billion a year of taxpayers' money being boosted by private investment and spent on projects like upgrading ports and rebuilding the steel industry. Let us explore that with Jonathan Ashworth, the Shadow Paymaster General, who is in our Westminster studio. Good morning.
Good morning.
How do you know that that amount of taxpayers' money a year unlocks 3 times as much private sector investment and creates that many jobs?
Well, that's the analysis that's talked by various independent experts. But we know that both private and public investment in this country has fallen well behind other industrialised nations. It's why our infrastructure is collapsing. It's why nothing works. It's why we've had paltry economic growth these last 14 years. And the consequence of that for working people is that living standards have fallen behind where they were at the start of this parliament. Employment is lower at the end of this parliament than it was at the start. 200,000 people lost their jobs since Rishi Sunak became Prime Minister. And our plan will get growth motoring, so in the end, people are better off with a Labour government.
But you know, our record as the UK is not great on leveraging, using public sector money to leverage more growth from the private sector. If you take the example of the British Business Bank, which is state-owned and it's supposed to take stakes in startups and help them expand, it's currently running at a pre-tax loss of £147 million a year.
Well, that is one of the reasons why we've had this paltry anemic growth.
Is that the government's fault?
That's what it is. Well, we have a plan to work in partnership with the private sector. My colleague Rachel Reeves, the Shadow Chancellor, will be hosting and meeting people from the private sector today as part of the Industrial Council. Our government will work hand in hand with industry to create these good well-paid jobs. And
these outcomes are not guaranteed, are they? For you to say that this is going to unlock 3 times as much private sector investment, you can't possibly know that for sure. And the jobs that are being created, how many of them will be replacements for existing jobs, for example, in the North Sea?
But there are great opportunities in the economy of the future if we're prepared to put the investment in there. Great opportunities in clean steel, for example, which will benefit Cardiff, October, Rotherham, Sheffield. Great opportunities for us to be a world leader in electric vehicle manufacture or wind turbine manufacture. Unless we invest now, we will fall behind other nations across the world. And a Labour government, we want to be the people manufacturing for the green industries, not buying from other countries.
To answer the question, how many of the 650,000 are replacement jobs rather than additional jobs?
Well, we don't believe we've already lost 200,000 jobs in the North Sea under the SNP and the Tories these last 14 years. We're going to invest in the North Sea. There's great opportunities in the North Sea in terms of hydrogen
they're all additional jobs. Some of them are replacement jobs. I think you're acknowledging that without being willing to put a number on it.
No, I don't think they are. These are good. We're creating good jobs good jobs across the country. I think you're making a point. I think you're getting at a point about the future of the North Sea. Well, let me just reassure you and your listeners: existing licences in the North Sea will be honoured, but we're going to invest in the North Sea by creating good jobs in hydrogen, in carbon capture.
Except those companies don't know for sure, do they, what kind of tax regime exactly they're going to face?
Well,
which
they do.
Let me tell you what's in the Financial Times today. That extraction companies, industry leaders have told them extraction companies have not drilled a new well in the North Sea this year because the sector is waiting to see who wins the election, and they know that you'd increase the windfall tax and that you'd stop issuing licenses for new oil and gas exploration. That is what the industry is expecting.
Yes, I mean they do know because it's outlined in black and white in our manifesto.
So jobs will go there.
No. Let me go through it again. We are not going to issue new licenses. Existing licenses will be honoured. We will invest, and there's great opportunity in the North Sea in terms of hydrogen, carbon capture, which will create good new jobs.
We are replacing some of the old jobs. That's the point I'm trying to get to.
But we are going to. But there is an energy transition taking place as we speak across the world, and we need to be at the forefront of that. And that is why we're going to invest in industry. And the reason we're going to do that and invest in UK renewables is because not only is it good for jobs, it brings down energy bills for people across the country. We're going to cut energy bills for good. And given that we know that people have faced such struggles these last few years with the cost of living crisis, this is the type of policy which can be transformative for working people who are struggling to make ends meet at the moment. Under Labour, you will be better off and your energy bills will be cut.
Well, how much will they be cut by the end of a first year in government under Labour?
Well, this is policy across a parliament, and you've got to invest in the renewable.
How much by the end of the parliament?
I'm not going to give you
10% lower, 20% lower.
I'm not going to give you a figure just put this is going to involve.
There's a big difference, isn't there? If your energy bill is cut by 1%, that's very different to your energy bill being cut by 20%.
But your energy bills will be cut as we invest in the green industries of the future, onshore, offshore, so that it creates good, well-paid jobs across the country, 650,000 jobs in those industries and other industries like clean steel and electric vehicles, and it will bring energy bills down. That is the difference a Labour government make. You would be better off. In contrast, the Tories are going to go on this sort of borrowing spree to fund their desperate manifesto,
Bringing
which will
energy
put
bills
mortgages up.
down, could that be down by 1%?
I'm not going to. No. You're trying to suggest that this cut would be negligible to energy bills. It's not remotely.
I'm trying to understand if it's a considerable cut, a meaningful cut or not.
Well, you will see by the end of the Parliament that we have cut energy bills, but look, it could be well, I have a look at.
Because economic growth doesn't happen straight away.
But we did have better economic growth the last time Labour was in government, and we would have had billions more spent on public services if we'd continued on those growth trajectories.
It's a completely different international climate.
Well, and then look at what's happening internationally. We know we have to transition to green, renewable energy sources, and we want to be at the forefront of that. If we are at the back of the pack on that, we will not get the economic growth in the economy that we need.
Let me tell you why I ask about unprotected parliament. Let's take one example, the Ministry of Justice. Okay, we know our prisons the population has ballooned, tougher sentences, court backlogs, there is overcrowding, the prisoner state is in a state of disrepair. That is going to be the reality if you are elected on your first day of government. So you have to wait for economic growth to sort that out?
Well, there's a particular issue in the prison's budget in that the Conservatives failed to spend properly the budgets that were allocated to them. But look, the key thing is this, right? There's a number of think tanks putting out projections about the future fiscal position. But they're static projections, if you like. They're a snapshot of the public finances where they are today. They're not taking into account that we will improve the performance of the economy.
But not the first 6 months, are you?
Well,
possibly not in the first year.
But we have an industrial policy that we're talking about today.
Is it going to deliver after a year?
We have a welfare policy, welfare reform policy. We have a skills policy. We have a planning reform policy to get building again in this country. We have an employment policy. Remember, employment is lower at the end of this parliament than it is at the beginning. That's not happened since 1979. We have a growth plan for this country which will allow us to invest in public services, and it will mean that working people are better off.
Jonathan Ashworth, thank you very much.
Thank you.
It is just come up to 7:45. Hey Jude is the headline on the front page of the Telegraph. Other versions of that are available in other papers as well. They're all about Jude Bellingham, of course. The 20-year-old wonder kid scored England's only goal last night on the front page of almost all the papers. And here, in case you missed it, is that match-winning move.
Saka does get it across, and it's headed in by Bellingham. 12 minutes. England's golden boy, Jude Bellingham, scores at the Euros.
Golden boy at the age of 20. Kevin Betsy knows Jude Bellingham well. He trained him as a teenager as an assistant manager of Cambridge United, and is on the line. Morning to you.
Good morning, Justin. How are you?
Good, thanks. Proud moment for everyone who knew him and everyone who trained him.
Yeah, without a doubt. You know, the journey of any young player, you know, is not always the work of one person. There's a accumulation of school teachers, football coaches, family members, friends. You know, that play a lot of work into try and helping the player grow and develop. And yeah, it's a great moment for a lot of people.
He seems, doesn't he, when you see him interviewed, he seems a very mature 20-year-old, but my goodness, the pressures on him from all sorts of, I mean, not just footballing pressures, actually just life pressures as well. What would you say about his ability to cope with all of that?
Probably one of the most standout qualities that he had as a young child growing up. I first worked with Jude when he was 13 years old, and we played him up a year or so for the England under-15 age groups, his first inception into the England youth teams, and he was very mature. His mentality to grow and develop was fantastic. He really had a drive to want to learn and progress, and I just think his tactical understanding of the game at such a young age was 2 or 3, even 4 years advanced of his age, and that's a huge quality. But I think fundamentally he was extremely calm and composed, even at that age. And every time he was moved up or challenged to a greater extent, he would excel, and that's probably what's happened.
So how far can he go now, do you think?
Well, he's doing extremely well. He's playing for Real Madrid, one of the best clubs in world football, and has won the Champions League this season, won La Liga, and now he's trying to help his country to win another Euros. And for him, he's just trying to be the best version of himself every day. And, I think it's not a time to put loads of pressure on him, and he's doing extremely well in the last 3 or 4 years of his development, and we wish him very well and every success.
Kevin Bates, thank you very much.
Time now at 12 minutes to 8 for Thought for the Day, and the speaker this morning is Professor Mona Siddiqui, academic and broadcaster.
Good morning. On Saturday, the Princess of Wales made her first public appearance since her cancer diagnosis at the annual Trooping the Colour Parade. In a poignant statement released on Friday, she said she'd been blown away by the messages of support, but also spoke of her struggle, going through good and bad days, saying, "I'm learning to be patient, especially with uncertainty, taking each day as it comes." Her words will have resonated with many. It takes courage to accept a serious illness, to accept that you aren't living the life you planned. Ill health brings its own deep uncertainties and isolation. But all of us will experience some struggle or suffering in life, simply by virtue of being human. And as part of facing these challenges, we become ever more conscious of what gives meaning to our lives, the things and people we've taken for granted, and the importance of living in the present. During such difficult times, whether we're experiencing an illness ourselves or trying to support a loved one, those of us who believe in God are encouraged to put our trust in Him even more. But we can often find ourselves wrestling with the very faith which we thought would be a refuge. Anger, sadness and fear can be overwhelming. But as thousands of Muslims celebrate Eid and return home from the Hajj pilgrimage to Mecca this week, I remember how last year a close relative decided to accompany his friend on the journey. A friend who had been diagnosed with an aggressive cancer but was determined to go on the pilgrimage. He said to me, "I might not get a chance to do much for him in the future, but I can do this. Going with him isn't a selfless act, it gives my life meaning too." They travelled together, prayed together, and performed all the rituals with patience and gratitude, not knowing what the future held. It said that there's no right or wrong way to deal with a cancer diagnosis. Each person needs to find their own way of coping, some even struggling with the stigma and fear surrounding the disease. The Princess of Wales's words and smiling appearance on the balcony of Buckingham Palace will have touched many. Not everyone feels they can open up, be vulnerable in front of others, but we can all feel inspired by those who, even as they struggle themselves, can offer heart and hope to a friend or a nation.
And that was Mona Siddiqui with Thought for the Day. The time is 9 minutes to 8. We are going to be spending some time this week looking at key issues that matter to voters in the light of what we know from key manifestos. The issues include health, crime reduction, transport, and today, housing. Not only the possibility of buying your own home, which is out of reach for so many, but also the availability of decent, affordable housing to rent in the private sector or by social housing. Two experts join us. Polly Neate, the Chief Executive of the housing charity Shelter, who's on the line, and here in the studio, Simon Rubinsohn, who's Chief Economist at the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors. You probably have a Chief Executive, Simon, who, yes, well, apologies to him, you're the Chief Economist. Now, you're here very much to talk about the house building side of things. This is something that pretty much all the parties say that they want to do. What are the main barriers? What pleased you or disappointed you from the Conservative and Labour manifestos?
Look, I think both parties have got quite ambitious plans in place. They're talking about sort of around 1.5 million homes over the next 5 years, which would be a material uplift on the sort of 1.1 that we've seen over the last 5 years. And both of them have got this focus on sort of the sort of trying to accelerate development on brownfield land. I think going beyond that, Conservatives looking at revival of Help to Buy. They're looking at trying to get the SME sector, small and medium-sized construction builders back in the market. They've been squeezed in recent years, while Labour's focusing on sort of getting sort of local authorities to have plans back in place, having mandatory numbers, and I think quite interestingly, looking at that sort of grey belt area, parts of the green belt that are a bit scrappy, that aren't particularly high quality, and perhaps trying to think about building on those areas.
Is this a real category, grey belt?
Well, I think it's something that has been talked about increasingly, looking at, because not all the green belt is high quality green land that we think about. Some of it can be a little bit more mixed in terms of its quality and its use, so it provides an opportunity perhaps to think about, particularly if it's near good transport links, to think about some additional development that could help supplement the focus on brownfield.
Polly, on Labour and building, are you disappointed that some of what they put in a policy document forum earlier on didn't make it into the manifesto? For example, the amount of new housing that should be affordable.
Yeah, somewhat disappointed, I would say. We would like a firm target on building social homes. I mean, I do have to say that if they are seriously going to build the number of new homes that they say they want to build, they will have to not only build social homes as a significant part of that, but history shows us those sort of numbers have never been achieved without public money being invested in building social homes. So they won't be able to achieve that anyway unless they significantly invest in social housing.
Do you have a figure for how much a year would need to be the public